Hello and welcome to this session of the Business Ecosystem Alliance. My name is Bram van Lek and I'll be your moderator in the coming hour. And today I'll be telling you about the Randon IG organizational model and more specifically about its most important components, the microenterprises. And to help me with that, I have three fantastic guests. The first is Sylvia Jinhui Guan, researcher at the Higher Model Research Institute. Vincent Roger, Chief Strategic Officer at Higher Europe, and João Domingos will introduce microenterprises into Fujitsu Western Europe. But before we hear their stories, I will share more about Higher, their Randon IG model, and what microenterprises are. Let me get to the slides. For several years, I've been a part of Corporate Rebels and have focused on researching Higher. And now we've bundled all those lessons into a book that will be published soon. The reason we did that is quite simple. We feel that Higher's story is an inspiring one, and more importantly, it's one many could learn from. But what is Higher and where did they come from? So in the early 80s, Higher started off as a traditionally organized refrigerator company, but soon they started to reinvent themselves drastically. And each time the context of the organization changed, for example, when they needed to diversify their products, or when China opened up their borders and joined the World Trade Organization, allowing in a lot of external competition, or when the internet grew huge and entirely changed the relationship an organization could have with its customer. Higher would reflect on their organizational model and change it to make sure it fits with the organizational context. And this evolution is part of Higher's DNA. And their CEO, Zhang Rumin, captured it perfectly when he said, "There's no such thing as a successful company, only one that moves with the times." And moving they did. When Zhang Rumin had first joined the factory in the early 80s, it was a traditionally run organization with a strong hierarchy, and it was on the verge of bankruptcy. They were in deep debt and the factory was a mess. But today, it's an entirely decentralized organization that employs over 80,000 people directly and provides jobs for many hundred thousands more via their platforms. It's the 68th most valuable global brand, just above IKEA and JP Morgan. And in 2016, they acquired an American icon, a company that in the past had tried to buy Higher, but now the tables had turned and Higher bought GE Appliances. And how did they do that is, of course, an important question to answer. And we're going to look today into the Randon IG model, which is the Higher model. That model consists out of several principles, and throughout their revolution, they've held true to those principles. And the first principle is that of the zero distance to the user. Higher reasons that to know what the customer needs and what the user needs it's important to be as closely connected to the customer as possible. This allows employees to quickly respond, and those who know best and are closest to the customer should have a deciding voice. They should decide. A second principle is everyone is an entrepreneur. Within Higher, everyone is seen as an entrepreneur. They're treated like them. They're rewarded like an entrepreneur. That way, they try to encourage people to take ownership and give them the ability to benefit from that ownership. And if they do it well, they will be rewarded as an entrepreneur as well. A third principle is become a network of loosely coupled units. And these units are the microenterprises, the topic of today. These units are bound via contractual relationships instead of a fixed hierarchy. Nobody tells anyone what to do. And with these principles as core ingredients, Higher evolved itself for decades. And the biggest change, however, happened in 2012. In that year, Higher created 4,000 microenterprises and gave their middle management, roughly 12,000 employees, a choice. Join us in the new structure or leave the organization. And for the onlooker, this might sound harsh, but the reasoning behind it was quite simple. The self-managing microenterprises were introduced to decentralize the organization and give employees more room to be entrepreneurial. Middle management would become obsolete. It wasn't needed anymore. Higher would turn into an organization filled with thousands of MEs that would form a network based on contractual relationships. In order to manage that and give the MEs the autonomy to reach their goals and be successful, Hire granted them certain rights, 3 in total. Each ME had their own profit and loss statements. They decided how to spend funds. The second big right they got was they can decide who to hire and especially who to do business with. If they decided an internal ME would be nice to collaborate with or would be the best candidate to collaborate with, they can just do that. They could sign a contract with an internal ME or microenterprise and collaborate with them. If they thought, well, we need an outside resource provider, they could just do that as well. So they had complete autonomy to do and decide who to do the business with. And perhaps most importantly, all these microenterprises and its members could decide how they do their job. They were free to reach the targets in the way they thought was best. This gives the MEs autonomy and freedom to find their customers for the services and products they created, and whether those customers were other MEs, external companies, or individuals, that didn't really matter. In practice, it meant that often MEs needed to collaborate with one another in order to create a product. And what you would see in this image as well, this is a schematic diagram of how microenterprise could collaborate. So in the center, there's a microenterprise, and the lines are contracts. So there's an initiating microenterprise. They set a target, they say, hey, we want to sell washing machines. And they formulate these goals in a way that it's different than in a lot of other organizations. Instead of saying, hey, can you help me with creating 1,000 washing machines? They say, if you help me create washing machines, you get an X percentage of the profits we make of selling this washing machine. And if we sell more than 1,000, that percentage of the profits will increase. The attempts were fruitful. Hire thrived throughout 7 years, and they were growing and growing tremendously. But the context had moved yet again. And now Hire needed to reinvent itself another time. With the rise of the Internet of Things, the problems Hire needed to solve and the MEs needed to solve were becoming more and more complex. So instead of looking at a customer who would need an oven, they would see a user that needs to eat. The difference being that an oven can be part of the solution, but a grocery, deliveries, and recipes that via an app automatically program the oven to do the right thing at the right moment could be part of that as well. Things became much more complex and more collaboration was needed. The difference was that there was a shift in mentality as well. Instead of having customers, they wanted to move to lifelong users. Compare the last situation where the microenterprises would form contracts and sell something with a construction company building a mall. They collaborated with multiple contractors, finish the building, and sell it when it's done, sharing the one-time profits with all involved after that. In the new ecosystem approach, they'll build the same mall, but instead of selling it, they put stores in it, rent stores to others, and split the profits of those stores with all the microenterprises that helped build the mall as well. In order to facilitate that, Hire created a EMC contract, a contract that uses blockchain technology, and it allows it to automatically execute what was decided upon at forehand. So the profit would automatically flow to the right ME when it came in from the customers. In practice, it meant that each EMC is separated into 2 components. The experience side of things, meaning that here are the shops, the online stores or repair microenterprises, and the solution side, where the IDs were created, where new refrigerators were designed, where new ovens were created, and they were bound in a contract that aligned all their incentives. By creating these dynamic contracts and making sure that all goals align, the microenterprises can collaborate more effectively and do not need to worry about competition. By using those contracts, it binds MEs in organizational structures in ways that would make any traditional HR person have a meltdown. It allows for complexity without losing focus and lack of clarity. And as you can see in this image, it can become rather chaotic for the outside onlooker. But internally, they understand what the deals are, They understand that they are tied to a contract and are free to collaborate with anyone inside or outside the hire ecosystem. Luckily, one does not have to go all in. And adopting blockchain contracts is definitely not a step that is required to be able to benefit from the principles in the model. During our research, we've seen many examples of companies that around the world that have adopted the model and benefited from it greatly. And today, we'll hear from their experiences by talking to two of those examples, Hire Europe and Fujitsu.
So let me start first for Bram. Thanks to you and everyone that is organizing this session for inviting us in. I feel that I'm sort of invited to the Champions League when I'm a new joiner to this journey of the Microenterprises, and Fujitsu is. From our perspective, we had a few problems to solve, which I think are not very different from Hire and other companies. We found ourselves in a world where we were too slow to market. Mm-hmm. And I usually give one example, which for me resonated quite strongly, which was the fact that I was looking in a session with Dr. Zhang from Hire, and at a certain point he was explaining the microenterprises, and we touched base on this concept, which I think for most of you in this webcast is familiar of unicorns. So everyone wants to work for startups, be unicorns. Uh-huh. It was Jet.com, who then got bought by Walmart, who had gone from inexistence to worth €1 billion in 4 months. Uh-huh. And at that time, I said to myself, Bram, 4 months, it's what it takes me in Fujitsu to hire someone. Just following standard processes and having all the approvals, etc. How can a company get to 1 billion from nothing? And I can hire one person. So I said, I'm definitely doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. And we took inspiration from that. One of our biggest challenges was to grow new areas of business, which I think is very similar to the examples you gave of the oven, and not looking at it as a product, but mm-hmm. thinking about the end user, the cooking, etc., the recipes. So in our world, in the IT world, we're talking about supporting our customers in digital transformation, or in cloud business, or in topics like cybersecurity. We're not growing them fast enough. And again, here what I usually saw is the weight of middle management, mm-hmm. which is one of the topics you have also addressed. And the analogy I use with my teams is we were trying to make a balloon fly, which let's say it's one of these new areas, and each department puts a hook on it. So you take sales, they wanted to do it their way, marketing has their own thoughts, finance thinks in a certain way, and the balloon never flies because everyone puts a hook and mm-hmm. the balloon stays on the ground. So this concept of empowering people, in particular the zero distance to customer, is something we took inspiration from the Rend and High model, and we brought delegation closer to our teams and to our people.
Can you help me understand, talk to that process a bit? So what you realized, we were too slow. There were companies out there turning into $1 billion business within the same time you hired new employees. So how do you go from there to introducing these more agile, more quicker ways to respond to the market?
Yeah, so what we have decided to do is to implement the Microenterprises model, which we have done 1 year ago. And what we have done is organize teams, agile teams, with basically the same principles as Hire has done. So we gave them delegation to contract, sign deals. We gave them delegation to hire, to spend, to travel, to do trainings. So they own their own P&L. Mm-hmm. We were not as brave as to create teams with no leaders. So we haven't taken that step yet. Maybe soon I'll be brave enough to do that, but I haven't been brave so far. And we have appointed the individual in the team we thought was more entrepreneur, using your expression, to lead the team. And that's how we organized over these new areas we wanted to develop. So today I manage 6 Western Europe countries in Fujitsu, mm-hmm. and we have created 3 microenterprises in each of them. We have more than 100 people aligned to this, so still very far from the 80,000 of hire that you mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
And through those means, I think we completely changed our approach to these new areas, and I think after 1 year we're seeing benefits of that. So that's our way to go about it.
And what kind of benefits are you talking about then?
So we set up 3 main goals,
Mm-hmm.
and one was employee engagement. So we wanted to have more engaged employees. Second one was customer satisfaction. So we wanted to have more satisfied customers. And the third one is a financial target, is we wanted to grow these, as I mentioned, these new areas of our business. So I can say that after 1 year, we have moved employee engagement from 64% to 73%.
Mm-hmm.
So points, which
even during the pandemic.
Even during the pandemic. So I think that was pretty good, and I think there's still a way to go in a few areas.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of Net Promoter Score, which is how we assess customer satisfaction, which is basically, for those of you who are familiar with it, the difference between your promoters and your detractors. So after 1 year, we have no more detractors as our customers. So no customers out there speaking bad things of us, at least according to the way we measure it, which we consider it quite good. So we moved also that score up. And from a financial point of view, we have doubled the turnover, the revenue of those areas of business that we have implemented Microenterprises for. I also wanted a bit of a word of caution here is we are new to this journey, so it's 1 year, and I think 1 year is very little to take big conclusions, and it has not worked the same way everywhere. So there are microenterprises more successful than others, but I think that's also the nature of the learning. So one of the things I always say, Bram, and I'll hand over back to you within 30 seconds, is microenterprises is not a dogma. It's not something that becomes, it's perfect for every situation, but it is a way and an instrument that I think if it's properly utilized, you can learn and you can grow from it. And that's what I think we're trying to do.
Thank you. I'm really interested. Do you have any idea what made certain microenterprises behave better or perform better than others? Was it, you mentioned bravery, was it skill, was it the market?
Yeah, so let me tell you a few internal things and a few external ones. I think the pandemic accelerated some areas of our business more than others, and that, of course, has a contribution to success. But while creating the microenterprises, one of the things we discovered is traditional Fujitsu managers or middle managers who became part of the microenterprises usually found it more difficult to succeed than people we hired from the outside or that grew from the ranks of the organization.
And how come?
I think a lot of us, and I include myself in that group, I think we're too accustomed to process. So we're too accustomed to old ways of working. So I think it takes time. And one of the advices I might drop to everyone that is listening is this also doesn't mean you need to give up on those individuals. So don't give up on me and others like me. But it's about changing your attitude towards coaching, towards training. It's just that it takes a bit longer. So I think that's also part of the at least the lessons we have learned so far.
And I see an interesting question already. Let's leave it at that, the last one for now, and then we move to Vincent. But how do you start a microenterprise? Did you just give a group of people a bag of money and say, "Hey, have fun," or how did that go?
So it was not. We don't hand over bags of money, but it was close to that. So we just in these new areas we have in the different departments people who were already working on them, that they were a bit lost in the bigger organization. We just brought them together and we said, this is the P&L we want you to manage against. Tell us what you need. We changed governance. For example, I didn't mention that. And we said, we're not going to review every month, but every month we'll do coaching sessions. You can ask us questions. You can tell us what the blocking points are. So we also tried to change that paradigm of how we usually manage a business. But it was something like that, yeah. we didn't do, I'm not sure if that happened with Hire, but we didn't, there was no application process. It's not like, do you want to join this? We just gathered the people, let's say our cloud experts or cybersecurity experts, and we just said, you no longer work in this sort of pyramid hierarchical organization. Now you're your own man, and you can go for it.
You pull them out and basically place them in a site structure.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Xiao. I'm sure there will be many questions afterwards. Vincent, would you mind introducing yourself briefly?
So I joined Hire in 2015, so 5-6 years ago now, after 20 years in a home appliances company, an American company. Fascinated by the challenge of Hire, basically. It was, in Europe, still a challenger. We were at number 9 position. And my mandate at the beginning was really to structure and accelerate the growth successfully. It went well. But after a couple of years, it was pretty clear that we were also needing to accelerate again the growth and going through acquisition. So we were scoping the market, and we acquired Candy Hoover.
Mm-hmm.
Hoover being a family-owned Italian company with a great complementarity with Hire, to be clear, from a product standpoint. So it was the perfect fit. And I've been managing the strategic roadmap. So I'm acting right now as a chief strategy officer of the company, but I also took the lead of the French subsidiaries 1 year ago. So I have this kind of double role.
Mm-hmm.
It's great because a part of the strategy, if not the core of the strategy of Hire, is really the M&A implementation and empowerment of people. So I did work a lot with the team, with the leadership team on that, and now I'm putting that in place in reality, in real, basically, which is again pretty fascinating. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. And you mentioned Candy Hoover being a good fit product-wise, but that is definitely not the only thing you had to be looking for. Probably, how was the culture fit? Were they ready to? Did they adopt the Rand and Hygiene model already, or can you say something?
Basically, yeah. No, it's a good point. I think the fit was good too, because entrepreneurship was present in both companies. The way of defining entrepreneurship were pretty different, to be clear. Mm-hmm. So this is where we are starting the journey of transformation, understanding how we can keep these strengths of entrepreneurship mindset, which was extremely strong and extremely successful at Candy Hoover, and make it a bit more M&A based, which is everything about empowerment. So I think what we did is we said that, we believe that experience are driving belief, and then belief is driving culture. So to start the journey, what we did is we put in place some pilots, basically since 1 year, of Microenterprises, based on the great Chinese experience and also GE appliances experience, and making it happen in real. Making sure that we will put in place some definition of the Hire attitude. So the one you described, so I'm not going to repeat, but everything about zero distance, entrepreneurship, and ecosystem IoT based. So it's in place. And then we had to challenge ourselves as manager to start losing control and supporting the team. So act as a kind of corporate incubator where people are empowered to make it happen. So to be a little bit more specific and precise, I think one of the key rules is to be clear in terms of strategic frame, because sometimes we have the question is that how do you avoid anarchy? I mean, why it's not going in? So we are clear in terms of vision. We want to be the first consumer choice in smart home solution. And then we want to grow, we want to become top 3 in Europe. So basically that's it. The other rule was brand. So we have a brand portfolio, they have brand promise, and that's clear to all. Then within this frame, we are empowering people to take the lead. So how do we do that in principle? So the first thing we are doing is that we are asking them to lead their segment, whatever the segment is, as soon as this is strategic, this is within this strategic frame. So this is a leading goal. We need to lead. We want to lead. Then the team is creating around this leading goal. So we have one owner, who is really acting as a CEO. He's creating his team. There is nothing about hierarchy anymore. Hierarchy is not existing anymore. It's cross-functional team trying to understand who can help, who can support, and this team is working towards these leading goals.
Can you help me understand? Sorry for interrupting, but you mentioned there's a CEO within that team. That sounds hierarchical. How is that different?
He's CEO because he's a business owner, he's his own entrepreneur. In the organization, his team is creating around him is not hierarchical to him, basically. So it's a kind of combination of, so we define CEO as much more as ownership than pure hierarchical link. I think that's over anyway. So, that's the way we define.
That makes sense.
So basically having this in place, there is one thing I forgot to mention is that the leading goal needs to be consumer-centric. It's all about consumer value creation. And this is super important. So we are not talking about shareholder value creation at this stage. We are thinking about consumer value creation. And the third element within, so you have this leading goal, you have this team, you are putting in place in between the mechanism linking the two, which might be based on profit sharing, exactly as a company, as a small business. And people and the team that is creating consumer value is getting benefit and share of the benefit to the team. And again, the CEO of these Microenterprises is able to share this profit across the team. So that's a little bit the principle of it. Maybe last thing to mention is that how do we do that? So as we are working a bit like a corporate incubator, and I told you that the biggest challenge was also to lose a bit control in terms of management. We're asking them to work on a business plan, exactly as if they would present a business plan to their bank. So, they are working together, they have the strategic frame, they work 3 months in a row. I mean, I did that in my team. We were around the kitchen environment, so, growing the kitchen business for us. They work like hell. It was a great learning for them. Most of the team, they never saw P&L. So I think it was fascinating also for them. It was, clear learning. They stepped big time. I was impressed to see the results.
What were there other things they needed, like an employee needed to learn in that new structure? Because the CEO role changed entirely. P&L became the daily standard, I guess. What other skills needed to be developed?
I think you need to the autonomy, agility. Consumer-centric, so not waiting within a traditional organization from order coming from the top. So again, as a management, we are here to support, to put them in a condition to succeed and to finance. So from their side, they need to understand that, take it, and live it on a daily basis. So being agile, being autonomous means specific keys. They need to take risk. They should not be afraid to fail, basically. And as a corporation on our side, we should not be worried about that. I think we should, again, maybe lose a bit of control, but then they go and the addition of the, let's say, the individual power is incredible. And the team, they are driving. And I've been experiencing in my life a lot of discussion about budget planning, understanding what would be the next year target. If I can give you an added value as a company, is that in my past life, basically, I think top-down target, you need to do 100, then bottom-up 90, and then 2 months internal discussion to understand if there is a trade-off at 95. In that specific case, taking the pilot of the kitchen in France we put in place, they came back to 5 themselves. Understand? So because, at the end of the day, they challenge themselves, they try to partner with external partner, with internal partner, making sure that he would lead this business. And the conclusion was much more ambitious than the one we could have had with internal discussion. And the only difference between the two models is that the discussion they had and the time they spent was only consumer-centric. They only thought about what would be good for the consumer, compared to the old model where it's internal discussion, bargaining what you should do, which is only internal discussion. So it's really the kind of bureaucracy, it's agility, it's consumer-centric kind of philosophy, it's empowerment. So personally impressed by the...
And these are all the benefits, of course, but I know and I've witnessed with my own eyes that it's not only success, right? MEs fail, and I know that within in China, MEs are founded and closed down with it, like with the snip of a finger. Actually, can you Can you share a bit about that? How does that differ, for example, within Hire France or Hire Candy Hoover? Is there a difference in how people deal with that failure? Because it takes bravery to dare to fail, right? You need to have that in you to be able to do that.
Yes, it's true, but again, I think it's and that specific role is our role as manager, as senior leadership team, as HR department. I mean, as soon as you believe in the model, people get secured about the way we are acting and managing the company.
Mm-hmm.
It's about taking risk. It's not the perfect word. Some maybe will fail for sure. Some maybe will succeed. So it's and when we are pretty demanding, meaning that when I was describing the 3 months business plan creation, where a lot of the team members learned a lot, they had to present the business plan, and
Mm-hmm.
ourselves as manager acting as challenging, yes, return investment, but we keep control at this stage. We are deciding to finance the plan or not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also giving them a kind of frame where they know where to go. So it's kind of the right balance between really being empowered and feel that the organization is ready to accept this kind of process, and then a kind of control, coaching them, supporting them, and at the end of the day, when they present the business plan, saying yes, no, or you should maybe go that way, and still keeping a little bit the control of financing the initiative.
Mm-hmm. One more question, and then I'd love to go to Sylvia. How do you see Random Hygiene evolve within Hire Europe? What would be a next step, for example?
I think Random is a business model. It's a management model and a business model. So we started as pilots because, again, we are in the middle of a transformation. And this experience will drive belief, which will drive culture. So then the idea is to roll it out. So right now I started, if I take the French example, I started with one Microenterprises. I will have 4 by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I started with 1. I will go to the same direction. We are moving step by step from the sales and marketing, let's say from the front office side to the industrial side. We are investing over 70 million in a brand new factory in Romania right now. So that will be managed as a Microenterprises.
Mm-hmm.
We are moving to different area of the company, and this will become our philosophy. So again, it's putting mechanism in place. It's learning. I mean, putting everything in place. But step by step, this is becoming our management model, our business model, and our philosophy. So to answer your question in a clearer way, Bram, is that we rolled it out. I think it will take potentially 1, 2, 3 years to go still, but this will become our management model.
Mm-hmm. And what determines that time frame? Is it the experience within the organization? Is it development of the market?
We are learning to put things in place. And then because, again, I think one of the potential risks, if we want to be too quick, then you will lose control and you will have too many things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Framing it and we try to do it in a perfect manner, and connecting Microenterprises in a way that this is set and this is working well. That's the way we do, and that will be limiting a bit the speed. Then, as soon as it is done, I think it's all about volunteering and again company culture. I'm pretty sure that we will have to slow down people, but speeding up people, which was not the case at the beginning. At the beginning, we had to start.
So now you have the momentum.
But then you have the momentum. You see successful MSs on some area that are, let's say, side by side with a traditional way of working. And you see the person on the traditional side looking at the ME saying, "Oh, I want to be part of it."
Mm-hmm.
Also, this kind of positive momentum that at the end of the day will help us building on that. And I'm pretty sure, again, I mean, it's difficult to say, is it 2 years, 3 years? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter so much. We want to do it well, but I'm pretty convinced that it will be faster than expected.
Great, thank you. I'm sure we'll get back to you with some questions afterwards. Sylvia, are you here? Great.
Hi, Bram.
Hi, Sylvia. How are you?
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. And you are part of the Higher Model Research Institute. What is that, and what do you do there?
Okay, it may be the first time you hear HMI. HMI is actually the short term of Higher Model Research Institute. It's like ME inside Higher Group. We are a group focusing on the management research, and what we are doing in previous years, we build a community for to communicate with outside experts and also companies to share ideas, to exchange ideas on the management model, so we could find a better solution for the new area and practice in our own group. That's what we are doing. And now we have like 8 research centers, and we hope to build the contacts locally to reach out to the companies and help them at the same time exchange ideas, get some inspirations.
And can you, because I know and I heard that before, and you're repeating it now as well, is that the Higher is really focused on local culture and making sure that that way of working fits, right? I interviewed Kevin Nolan, the CEO of GEA, and he told me, like, I was surprised. Higher bought us for $5.4 billion, and they said, well, you can do it. We're not telling you anything. You can just learn from us, but you don't have to do it. And he was amazed by that. So can you tell me a bit more? Why does Higher think it's so important that the local culture remains intact, and why not just sweep everything out and place the rent and hygiene philosophy and done?
No, that's not gonna happen. I don't see it's very possible to do that. It's not gonna happen yet. Every moves, you have to adapt to the local culture. But at the core, the principle of 人道合一 is the human value maximization. I think it's the very universal value for all the cultures. That's the basic of adopting 人道合一 in different cultures in different regions. And the 人 we refers to the 人 as the employees. We want to maximize the value of employees, and also for the users, and also for our ecosystem partners. And but the specific ways to do that is very different. You can see that Fujitsu Europe is doing it with his own methods, and also Higher Europe is learning and adopting with the progress of adopting it. So it's like a dynamic and very like it can change in different organizations, but the key value is the same. That's we are also curious how it could be done in different cultures. So I think the local experts and local companies can have that solution to make to like set an example for the companies locally.
And do those lessons go back as well? Like, do they does what Higher Europe learn go back to Higher China and say, hey, they figured out this new thing, and we want to try it as well in Higher China? Is it like bi-directional?
Yeah, sure. I believe that happens in the daily operation, because we have the example model or pilot meeting. The good examples within Higher Group will share their experience, and other MEs can learn from them. So sure. Great.
What are the challenges Higher has had during the past years?
Okay, to talk about the challenges, we may have to back to the strategy change, because we don't change to change. We change because the time change, and our strategies are adapting that. So we are now in the 6th strategic stage, which is called ecosystem brand stage strategy. we are doing this because stepping into the new area where the IoT technology plays a very important role in modern companies or modern markets. We found that users can will not only be satisfied by single products, but like a set of products or even best experience in one settings or one scenario. But within this scenario settings, these services cannot be provided by only one ME. One ME may focus on the washing machine, but settings may contain like the washing machine, the running machine, or other like the decoration service can be done with one ME. So we adapt this structure to EMC. It involves basically EMC means a group of MEs working together to provide a solution for the users, like you just described to the audience. That's one challenge from the ME structure. So we change a little bit and encourage the cooperation between MEs. And in the ME stage, we still have the contracting between different MEs, but in this new EMC stage, we use this the EMC contract platform to make the contracting between each other more easier, and which will save a lot of cost or time doing this. So we're making it more easier, more smoother to do this. That's one of the challenges we may face from the ME stage. So if companies also have the ecosystem strategy, maybe the EMC structure may help them.
Thank you. We have about 15 minutes left. I really see some good questions coming in. I encourage everyone to ask more. I'm going to start with an easy one and a complicated one at the same time. I'd love to hear all of your answers, João, Vincent, and Sylvia. So what is the size of a microenterprise? Is there a limit? And how many people do they contain? João?
So again, we're young to this. Maybe Vincent has a more complete answer. But from our perspective, the moment you start to get hierarchies again, is the moment you need to rethink the microenterprise. But Vincent, you're far longer on this journey than we are. So I would say if it starts to get above the 10, 12 people, we tend to see if we should continue like that or break it. But that's, again, 1 year of experience from Fujitsu.
Yeah, I agree, João. I mean, our experience right now is to have team between 5 and 15 people. I think the definition, again, I think as everything is starting from the consumer, the zero distance to consumer, I think the size of the team needs to be in relation with the target group we are talking about. So, it can be changing. But what we need to keep, and I would fully agree with João, is that as soon as you're rebuilding a structure, then you are lost. So you need to keep the size, to be close to your consumer, understand your consumer, and then being agile in answering the need of the consumer. So that would be my definition. Today, again, the 4 pilots I have are between 5 to 15 people.
Yeah, sure. That's like the smallest size of an ME, but that doesn't mean that an ME can't grow to a bigger form, because ME can incubate smaller MEs with the new user needs emerging. So if a new needs emerges, one can set up or establish a new ME with a new a set of people in it. It can grow in this way.
So basically the ME turns into an incubator itself.
Yes.
A small hire.
Yeah.
Great. And then you get the complexity I showed with all the internal and external.
That's how we evolve. It may be complex at the outside, but internally it's very logically proceed.
Yeah. Let me browse through the questions real quick. Sylvia, a question directed at HMI. How does the Research Institute make money or profit? Who are your customers?
Basically, we are now transforming to training and consulting institutes. We face a lot of requests from companies, outside companies. They want to learn how to implement 人脑合一 in their own organizations. Thus, our research centers now tutoring, training them how to do this.
Thank you. And providing those services to companies, MEs within Hire, or mainly outside?
Mostly outside Hire. Yeah.
Great. A question for Xiao. You currently have around 14 MEs, is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
And the question is, how did you manage to move so quickly in the setup of the MEs? And I get the question because previously it took 4 months to hire someone, and now you have 14 MEs within a year.
Yeah, so I gathered my management team before, and I sort of did, as you do when you get married. I said, speak now or forever be silent sort of meeting. So, and we just went for it. I also showed, and I think Hire as a very interesting example that Corporate Rebels shows also quite often about the fridges and the sledgehammer, where they got destroyed for their sort of default products. I also presented when doing the comps for this, all the money lost in the traditional ways of working, because I think we have an illusion of control that is not there. So we think that through spans, layers, etc. So exposing that. And then I think I created a support team. So there's people who report directly to me who are there just to take blockers out of the way. That's the only thing they do every day, so that the microenterprises don't spend time sort of fighting the organization.
Great.
There's a few things in that quick answer.
So making sure that the layer around these microenterprises enables them to be entrepreneurial. That's basically the trick to doing it. And if you scale that layer, then the more microenterprises you can handle, basically.
Right.
Great, thank you. And when I interviewed Kevin Nolan, he said, well, a funny thing happened. When I was developing business previously, I would spend most of my time in meetings, on budgeting, on the big products we had, right? Now with the microenterprise system at GEA, he mentioned like the big successful parts I'm not spending any time on, because they know how to run their business. They know how to do it. I'm spending all of my time on the smaller microenterprises that need to still develop their time and product, basically. Is that the same at Fujitsu?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. So I think another of the things I had to learn, again, I put myself as part of also the legacy of the company, is to get off the way. So if it's working, don't be there. And also resist as a manager to give your opinion. Because I think one of the things we tend to do as managers, and when we're in meetings, is we express our opinions. Mm-hmm. We influence group thinking. So if you really want a microenterprise to be successful, and I used the term brave before, be brave enough to shut up and not to say what you think, and also allow them to fail. Now point them in directions where they can learn, have others in your team coach them, but resist that. So I totally agree with that.
Xiao, how do you select the first ME? So how do you know which ME to start? Did you already had an industry you wanted to tackle and didn't have a foot in? Was it an industry you already had a foot in, or how did that go?
No. So in our case, I think was in that sense different from Hire, is where we wanted to be and where we wanted to move to. And let's say it's this idea again of unicorns. It's how we create those unicorns, those new units inside of the traditional company. With let's imagine a dinosaur. So how can you create those unicorns? So it's about the areas we wanted to grow, the new areas where we felt the traditional ways of working were dragging us down. Now I think again this is a one-year journey. I think as the microenterprises evolve, I'm also looking back to the legacy businesses we have and see how we can apply that to our traditional ways of working.
And what would be the trajectory of Fujitsu? Do you see this going through because this is only tried at Western Europe? Yeah. Will it be tried at different places around the world?
So this year we're going to start in other areas again. Now a bit outside of my control because I'm just the head of Western Europe. So our colleagues in the north of Europe and other parts of Europe will also start this way of working or this new business model. And I think we're starting to socialize this with our HQ in Japan. Now I think there were a lot of questions on the chat around culture. Japan in particular is a very hierarchical society and culture, and I think they're also looking into how that impacts them. I think that would be more of a midterm move, but hopefully I think we can excite and put that sparkle in the rest of the company to move in our direction. So that's...
Perhaps Sylvia, I can have some comments on that because I know that Hire has acquired Sanyo a few decades ago. I think it was almost before the microenterprise structure. So there is at least some experience with Rand and Haiji in Japan. So the two of you might connect to that. We have about 5 minutes left, and I think I want to ask a closing question to you as well, Sylvia. What would be how does Hire compare to other organizations within China? Because it sounds different than any organizations I've seen. Or are all the organizations in China organized like this?
No, it's not only in China. I think it's very pioneering form even in the world. Like Chinese companies, maybe I think it's just the same as other companies in other countries, but Hire exploring this new form, and we are like unique, very unique in the world.
Great. Then a final question for all. I see that Vincent just came back. Let's make use of his internet while he still has it. We've all been there. I feel with you. So what would you advise for companies that want to adopt the Rand and Haiji model?
I think maybe to step back a bit first, understanding why Rand and Haiji. Because I think we need to give a direction, a sense of what we are doing. I think the world is unpredictable. Top-down decision cannot fit anymore individual needs. We will be going more and more to circular economy, to a closer, business relationship, working with local players. So to think that one or a couple of people or a group of people can decide and being in control of everything is for me is crazy, and it will become more and more obsolete. So I think that's the first thing. I think you need to step back and understand why we are doing that. Mm-hmm. And having that in mind, it's a question of cultural turnaround. Understanding where you stand for. Where is your starting point from an empowerment standpoint, and go and walk the talk and go step by step, making sure that step by step you are giving the direction of the leading goals, being sure that you are talking about the consumer in any kind of discussion, and step by step empowering people to make things happen, knowing that they have the solution. They have the solution for sure. So that's what I would advise. Then I think the pilot is working pretty well, but because again, this is giving a good sense of the power of the system and the mechanism itself. So that is helping then the deployment.
Thank you, Vincent. Xiao, would the employees of Fujitsu who are in MEs right now, could they ever go back to the hierarchical structure again?
I don't think so. I don't think so. So we need to have them probably talking on these sessions more than us. But I don't think that they would like to go back to the previous ways of working. And actually, as I think Sylvia mentioned, we also see other people that work in our more traditional organizations asking us when can they join. So, which is pretty neat.
Nice. Happy to hear that. Sylvia, could you ever work at a company that's not Hire? Or where you cannot be that entrepreneurial?
Oh, I don't. I have no experience working in other organizations, but I can see. If I leave Hire, I think I can be like special in other organizations, because all the match settings in hire, I think is right in the in nature. I think it's a right thing to explore, and it's really inspires people to create. That's very important. Not working in any organizations, but it's very important for your life guidance. It's a very valuable life guidance. And I think if other companies wants to implement 人道合一 in their own organizations, in hires experience, we have done this for 16 years. And the way we do it, the first important thing is the CEO's mind setting. He has to have the resolution to do this. There is no coming back, and he has to let go of the rights and make the employees have the creation rights, creative rights. And also, if you do this, you can't do it overnight. You need to set an example and help them to succeed, so the experience can expand. And also, it's not easy to stay revolutionary. You have to be persistent, and you need to see in the future and keep doing it. It's not a one-day thing. That's my advice.
Thank you. I'm almost jealous that you only have worked in a company that's so entrepreneurial. Yeah, great job. Thanks, Xiao, Vincent, Sylvia, for today. I'm going to wrap this up. It was a fantastic session. I really appreciate all the insights, and I'm sure there will be many questions raised after this. But thanks for your attendance, and the audience at home. Thanks for joining us, and I'm sure they're all clapping behind their laptops right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bram.
Thank you.
You're welcome.